and get going. Thanks everyone for coming and congratulations on your award. They're technically called direct appropriations. There are a few different pots of money, local and community projects. There are some food bank projects, community relief projects. There are a whole bunch of folks coming in, and that's a good thing. Just a ground rule here, you'll notice at the bottom there's a Q&A button, or at the top if that's where your tools are. Please don't use the Q&A button. If you have a question, just put it in the chat and then we'll get to you at the very end. We'll read all of the questions that you have and all of the follow-up questions. That's the main thing we're here to do today, is answer your questions, because there's bound to be a lot of them. All righty, let's get going. And it's, of course, push the button and the button doesn't work. The Department of Commerce, what the heck do we do? We strengthen communities. We have so many different programs to help so many different types of folks, and we want everybody to know about all of them. We've had housing the homeless, units, infrastructure, business assistance, energy, planning, community facilities, which is where we are, crime victims and public safety, and community services. If you are interested in any of these things, just go to our website, commerce.wa.gov, and you can navigate around to look for grants, assistance. We're managing a lot of federal assistance. So go on over there and take a look and spread the word. Here's what we're going to do. We're signed up for a couple hours just to make sure we get all the questions. It won't take that long, but we will be here even longer than that if there are that many questions. So ask away. We're going to introduce the staff that's on here. We'll do an overview of the process from beginning to end. We'll talk about how you request reimbursements. Heather and her team is here to talk about securitization, and then we'll have the Q&A and wrap it up. So let's go for introductions. Beth, why don't you start, since you're the one I can see.
Okay. Good morning, everybody. I'm Beth Robinson. I'm one of the supervisors on the Community Capital Facilities team. Happy you're all here today. Thank you for coming.
And let's go for Cheryl Reed.
Hi, all. I'm Cheryl Reed. I'm Beth's counterpart, and I'm a supervisor and over the local and community projects.
And Heather, why don't you talk about your team?
Good morning. I'm Heather. I am the supervisor for the real estate development and services, and we handle all the securitization for the grants.
Mike.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Michael Boyd, and I am also with the Real Estate Development and Services team, working on your guys' securitization requirements.
And Sheila, let's put you on the spot if you could introduce yourself. I think you're on mute. Sheila, are you there? It looks like we're having some technical difficulties. Sheila is managing a whole bunch of these managers who are managing a whole bunch of your projects, and she's super, and she can answer any of your questions as well. All right, moving on. Let's talk about the process. This is where most of you got started. These are what we call member request forms, and it's also known as legislative intent. There are many different types. I put them here from oldest to newest. You'll see a lot of them are handwritten. Then they evolve further and further. Now I think everyone does just about everything online, although there's still folks using the older forms. So we'll get them of all types, but they all do essentially the same thing. At the beginning of the process, the application processes will be sent to your members and your legislators. They'll take this And then they will, along with the leadership of Capitol Budget House and Senate, will figure out who wants what and what priority, and they'll put them on the many different types of lists. Again, most of them are called local and community projects. And at that point, once the governor signs, then they have a whole different use. They're now what we call legislative intent. And this tells Commerce where the money's supposed to go, who's it supposed to go to, who are the organizations, and what, most importantly, what the money is supposed to do. And this is what we need to do. If your project varies too far from this, we will have to request a change of intent. And it's not difficult to do. And this, again, it's such a long process that many projects will inevitably change, especially with the growing budget and spiraling costs. Then a lot of times they have to change. If they do, we can walk you through that process. Again, it's not uncommon these days, and it's not too difficult. Your program manager and your project managers will be able to take care of you. All right. Again, if folks are coming in late, please use the chat. If you have questions, please don't use the Q&A. And then at the end of the presentation, we will answer all of your questions and all of your follow-up questions. All right. So what do you see to get started? Many of you have already received these award materials, but they will be trickling out here in the next week or two. So if you haven't got them yet, don't panic. We will get it to you. Your program manager will send you an email. In it, you will have the award letter in the body of the email. If you need a copy of an official or a more official letter, maybe for a bank or to show potential other funders, we can get one for you right away. It'll also have a copy of the program guidelines, which will help you out. And most importantly here, a link to the readiness survey. And this survey is, and let me click on it here. It's a very, very simple survey monkey. And these are the questions it's going to ask. Your organization name, and please make sure it's the same as what you said on your legislative intent member request form, the name of your project, the organization's contact, who we should be contacting, first and last name, email, phone number, and then who your Commerce project manager is. This will be in the body of the email. It will say the name of your project manager and their contact info, phone number, and email. And then it will ask these questions. Do you have control of the project site, either through ownership or a long-term lease? And that it needs to remain in effect for a minimum of 10 years from the following last payment. And these are all requirements for all of these direct appropriations. Has your project budget been finalized? That we'll need to see that. Has your organization secured all of the other funding sources needed to complete the project, either through loans or documented pledges that are binding, that can't go away? This only applies if your award from the state is less than your total project budget. And that's another reason why we need to see your project budget. We can't release any of the funds until you have all the other funds needed to complete your project. And that's to avoid the classic bridges to nowhere. If you grew up in Seattle like I did, you remember down by the old Kingdom, there were those giant overpasses that sort of stopped in the middle of the air, and they were there for years and years and years because that project ran out of funding, and it looks horrible. No one likes to see that. So we want completed projects. We don't want to stick money into a building and then just have the foundation sit there and then not go anywhere else. It doesn't look good. And does your project contain other sources of state funding? This will help us coordinate between the other funders. Maybe there's a switch that we could make so you only have one project manager. That's the idea there. Let's go back to the PowerPoint. So there's your readiness survey. You'll push the done button and that'll go to us. We will send them to your project manager and they will send that to they'll figure out your next steps. They'll send you all the forms you need if you're ready to go and get the ball rolling. We talked about the ownership of the project site, the budget, all the funds legally committed, and I wanted to talk about reappropriation briefly. These funds technically expire at the end of the biennium, and it's particularly short because a lot of them were funded in the supplemental session. So the end of the biennium, in this case, is June 30th, 2023, next year. But don't panic. A lot of times, folks who receive these direct appropriations aren't ready to go, and they need to do a whole bunch of other stuff. They need to get site control, or they need to do a lot more fundraising. And we will automatically request reappropriation of these funds into the following biennium. So that's the 23-25 biennium, and that would expire June 30th, 2025. So don't panic. We can't guarantee reappropriations, and that's because one legislature cannot bind the actions of a future legislature, but they have always reappropriated these funds. So if you're a little worried and you're not ready to go and you need more information, give me a call or contact your project manager. Again, there's nothing you need to do. Just let us know so we can make sure to keep you up to date and let you know when it's reappropriated. Like I said, odds are very, very, very good that your project will be reappropriated. All righty. Other pre-contracting requirements and rules. With this state money comes a lot of regulation, one of which is the project needs to pay prevailing wages. Prevailing wages are determined by county, and they vary by position. A plumber will have a rate of wage, a drywaller, an electrician. They all have a prevailing wage, again, that varies by county. The governor signed this budget on March 31st, so that's when your prevailing wage requirement kicked in. Executive Order 2102. This is regarding tribal and archaeological review. This is it's pretty important, and it came around many years ago when a state, I think it was a transportation project, spent not hundreds, but millions and millions of dollars, and then found some very sensitive native artifacts and had to shut down, and that was the end. And so Governor Gregoire, I believe, did the first executive order saying that all of these state projects need to be reviewed for a couple of things. First, we want to notify the tribes, any area affected tribes, and we can get you a list of the project. And then the Department of Archaeology and Historic Preservation wants to take a look at the project for a couple of reasons. First, they have big maps that cover the entire state, and they know where there's a possibility that there might be some sensitive artifacts. And then they also want to look at the historic nature of the building. If it's over 50 years old, they want to see, particularly they want to take a look at the exterior windows, that kind of thing. They want to see what you're planning on doing if it's a renovation of a potentially historic building. All right, LEED certification. This is what they call high performance or green buildings. You must meet, if you are constructing or renovating, the LEED silver status. There are 4 levels of LEED. certified silver, gold, and platinum. So silver is the second one up. It's these are nice looking, nice functioning buildings. If you ever get a chance to see a LEED platinum building, it is gorgeous and very functional. There will be some added expense. The folks who believe in LEED and green buildings say it will be 1 to 2%. The folks who don't agree with this idea say it'll be 10, 15, 20%. In my experience, it depends entirely on the building type, but is generally somewhere in the middle. And the idea is you'll put a little more up front and you will return a lot more back in not only a more functional and more user-friendly building, but you'll get savings in energy costs. And many times you can also get rebates from your energy provider. So I would definitely look into that. There are exemptions. If it's a construction project and it's under 5,000 square feet is of occupied or conditioned space, you are automatically exempt. If it's a renovation project and it's under 5,000 square feet and the cost is less than 50% of the assessed value of the land in the building, you are automatically exempt. Acquisition only projects, a turnkey project are always exempt. There's no LEED silver status for those. And not practicable. What does that mean? Well, the best example of a not practicable project would be a very common project these days that are mixed use projects. There's a ground floor that's potentially retail or office for service delivery. And then up above, there will be housing perhaps. And the housing portion, they don't use LEED, they use a different state regulation design called the Evergreen Sustainability Standard. And it's different from LEED and a little less stringent. So if you're building one of these types of facilities, or maybe you are condoizing the bottom portion that's not residential, then we will give you a not practicable exemption because it would be not practicable for one floor to go LEED and the other floor to go evergreen. The caveat there is the entire building would need to go evergreen, including the non-residential portion. This is coming up more and more, and it's complicated. And I also want to go back to prevailing wages for a bit. There's prevailing wage differs similarly in residential versus commercial. There are there's a residential prevailing wage and a commercial prevailing wage. And again, if you have these combo buildings, it can get complicated. And thankfully, the Department of Labor and Industries that makes these determinations, they have a hotline and an email that you or your contractor can call and to ask, hey, which prevailing wage rate do I pay? It can get complicated, which is why we refer you to Labor and Industries. They are the end all be all when it comes to prevailing wages. And let's see, one more bit about not practicable. Another not practicable exemption could be a very small piecemeal project that would not be eligible to be rated by LEED. So maybe it's a few repairs here and there, and your architect or your contractor says it can't go LEED, then we would give you a not practicable exception there. All righty, let's see if the button works. Contract execution. You've gone through all of these steps. You've got all the money needed to complete the project. You've got control of the project site. You're paying prevailing wages. Then your project manager will send what's called a set of working papers. This is a document that will tell us everything we need to write the contract and get the contract executed. And then you will also need to submit proof of insurance at that time. We will then have you review the contract and then get it into the DocuSign system. It took us the pandemic to finally get DocuSign. And I guess we can call that a silver lining. We've been trying to get some sort of electronic signature system for a long, long time. And we've got it. And it's really simple and it works. It's great. And now we need to talk about securitization. And to do that, I'm going to introduce our securitization manager, Heather Reach.
Good morning, everyone. So again, I'm the supervisor for real estate development and services. We'll be handling your securitization. It can be a complicated process and we're here to help. We've prepared a little video for you to watch to kind of give you an overview of that. So Michael, you want to go ahead and start that?
Hello, my name is Mike and I'm one of the securitization managers for the Real Estate Development and Services team within the Community Capital Facilities Unit here at Commerce. For the next few minutes, I'm going to do a brief overview of the securitization process. This is a pre-recorded slideshow, so please hold your questions until the slideshow is complete. In the beginning of the contract process, you will receive an email from your program manager detailing the next steps your organization will need to take to work towards the finalization of your grant. At this time, a member of the Real Estate Development and Services team will be assigned to your project and will contact you soon. During the process, you will be asked for a number of documents. One document you will be asked to deliver to Commerce is one that shows site control. Site control is the right to acquire, build upon, or lease the project site. This could be a long-term lease agreement, a purchase and sale agreement, or a warranty or other type of deed. One of the grant conditions is that you own and operate the project site for its intended purpose for a certain number of years. This is sometimes referred to as the commitment period. The length of the commitment period is specified by the program under which your grant funds are being administered. Your organization is required to secure these funds throughout this time period. Securitization is the way that Commerce will secure, in a legal sense, the funds to your project site. Three of the most common ways we securitize funds is through the use of legal documents such as a promissory note, a deed of trust, or a restrictive use covenant. Another one of your grant conditions is that you purchase title insurance in the amount of your grant. To do so, you will start by selecting a title company to work with. Once you have selected a title company, you will ask your title representative to order a title report. You'll want to review the title report and verify the records and site location are accurate. Then you will deliver or ask your title representative to deliver the title report to your securitization manager. Your securitization manager will review the title report and will discuss with you any concerns or additional requirements that may be necessary for securitization. Next, the securitization manager will draft the legal documents and send them to you for your review. After the documents have been reviewed and signed, we will coordinate with you and your title representative to have the documents recorded. At this time, the final title policy will be issued. The title company will then deliver the recorded documents and the final title policy to Commerce. After the promissory note, the recorded documents, and the title policy have been received by Commerce, you and your program manager will be sent an email notification that securitization is complete. The securitization documents will remain on public record until you have reached the end of your commitment period. At this time, you will be sent the promissory note and recorded deed of trust from the beginning of your project. You will also receive a signed reconveyance and a release of covenant. Once these documents are received, you will deliver them to your trustee and they will release the documents from public record. Thank you for the hard work that you and your organization perform to serve your community. Please contact us with any securitization questions that you may have. We are happy to educate and guide you through this process. Thank you.
Terrific. Heather, is there anything you want to add?
No, again, I just want to reiterate that I know some of this process to get your grant securitized could be a little bit foreign to you, but I just want to reiterate that we're here to help and we'll walk you through the entire process. Thank you.
Thanks, Heather. And yeah, I'll follow that up. She's and her team are fantastic. And a lot of this stuff is fairly complicated, but they'll make it easy for you. All right, I'm going to take over the screen again. And push the button that never works. There we go. Let's talk about what you can submit for reimbursement. And I put that little asterisk there because depending on your legislative intent, it might not be eligible. There are sometimes projects we receive that don't quite fit these rules, but these are general rules. Bricks and mortar, right? We're funded with bonds, so in the capital budget, we're generally in the business of building buildings. But anything generally, again, that is involved in building those buildings is eligible for reimbursement, depending on, again, your legislative intent. Or A&E, architectural costs and engineering, permitting and fees, demolition and site prep, capitalized equipment, as long as it can last 13 years or more. IT infrastructure, that's the wiring in the wall. Generally, ineligible costs, internal administrative costs, those type of costs are generally funded in the operating budget. Project management, internal project management. If you have hire an external project manager, that is generally an eligible cost. Fundraising activities and development, feasibility studies. We will see feasibility studies come through as part of legislative intent sometimes. Computers, and that's because, again, everything needs to last 13 years or more. And if you think about the computer you had 13 years ago, it's probably not doing too well right now. Rolling stock, what is that? That's generally vans, cars, any kind of automobile. It could also be maybe a cherry picker with a big, with a wheel cherry picker, generally ineligible, and moving costs are also ineligible. All right, now I'm going to turn it over to Beth Robinson, and she's going to talk about the reimbursement process. Take it away.
Okay, good morning, everybody. I'm going to steal the screen, Mike.
Please.
Remote.
Stop share.
We don't want to see that or that. Hi, everybody. I wanted to run through the reimbursement process with you. Everything will be submitted online through your project manager. You will be required to fill out a system access request form. And what this does when you fill it out and you submit it to your project manager, what this does is has your project manager provide what kind of services you're going to be entering into the CMS system, whether you're going to be doing data entry and submitting or read only, this is where you'll complete that information and submit it to your project manager. Additionally, you'll be required to submit a statewide vendor form. This is it right here, to Office of Financial Management. This is so that they can set up the direct deposit for your reimbursement through our system. And so you'll provide all of this information for direct deposit, and that is where your reimbursement is sent to. You will receive this external manual on how to submit A19s, where you'll go through and create your Secure Access Washington account. Sorry. I have a cat, I'm sorry. It goes step by step, what documents you need to submit to your program manager, if you have issues, how to add attachments to the system. This manual will help you. I don't want to go too deeply into those processes. We can go down quite a big rabbit hole there. So in addition to your backup documents, which would be your invoice vouchers, a copy of your canceled check that you'll submit in the system, you'll also sign and complete an A19 invoice voucher and a project status report. You'll answer the questions in the status report. And on the second page, you'll fill out the projections on how you intend to spend your funds. I guess not how, but when you'll be spending those funds out. The last document you'll complete if your expenses are over $1,000. This is the expense report where you list your subcontractor's name, the UBI information, how much was paid to them. And this is a document that you'll upload as well. The Commerce Accounting Department is required to submit your reimbursement to you within 30 days. Is considered timely. However, our folks are pretty quick, and usually the turnaround time is just about a week to 2 weeks. I believe that's all that I have.
Great. Thanks, Beth.
You bet.
And again, this can seem daunting, but don't panic. We've heard darn near every question, although there will probably some today we haven't heard yet. And if we can't answer it right away, we'll get back to you real quick. And again, this is what Beth went over already. All of this material will be available in many different formats, including a recording of this video and the securitization video. And at the end of the day, when we get all of the questions answered, we will turn that into an FAQ and put that on our website as well. All right, push the magic button. And at the end of the day, you've spent your funds, your building or your project is complete. You will receive a closeout letter and fill out and sign that and the report. If there are any unspent funds, which actually does happen, believe it or not, you'll send us that information and acknowledge that yes, you're leaving some money on the table. And then there will be a commitment period. And like Michael said in the video, it does vary by program, but it is generally 10 years from the date of your final payment from the state. And that's when your restrictions will be lifted and your project considered closed. All right, let's get to the Q&A. I'm going to turn it over to Cheryl, who will start reading the questions that you left us in the chat.
Hello. Let's see here. I'll go through. Okay, first question is on the project readiness survey, question number 9, has your project budget been finalized? Is this the overall project cost budget or detailed or itemized budget?
It's the budget. It's not very detailed. It'll be sorted by line items such as construction, A&E, acquisition if it involves acquisition. But generally, we're talking about the construction budget or a renovation budget. We want to make sure that the budget you submit and the budget that we put in the contract is accurate, so we can get you reimbursed properly and make sure that the project will get completed. I hope that answers your question.
Dory asked a question, what if the funding is for pre-construction planning?
Oh, if that's in the legislative intent, you'll just let us know that, and all of that, that project, so to speak, is the funds are covered with the state grant, then you're ready to go. But other than that, you'll still need, if you don't have all of the money needed to do that, then you'll still need to raise that before we can go to contract.
Next question is, will we be receiving a copy of this PowerPoint to use as a reference?
Absolutely. And there'll be a lot of other places to go, including one that I'm going to show you when we're done with the Q&A.
I think this next one is related to LEED. I think this is when it came in. It says, what if it is a bridge?
Oh, bridge. So a bridge, unless it has a controlled space and HVAC, that kind of thing, I do not believe there is a LEED rating systems for bridges, but they keep adding them every day. So just check with your architect. I always say that, and they are very familiar, or they should be, with the LEED system, but I don't think there is LEED for a bridge.
Do we use the prevailing wage rate of March 31st, 2022 for the duration of the project?
The rates change. So that date is only the date where you have to start paying prevailing wages, but your contractor should be checking the wages as they change. So it's not a fixed in time. They do adjust the rates.
Mike, can I add to that one?
Hey, Sheila, go.
Hi. So your rates are so the prevailing wage is triggered with the signing of the bill, but your wage decision is going to get locked in with your bidding process, right? So if you don't go to bid for a year, I mean, you should be checking those wage decisions when you start going to construction and what you're going to need to put into your bid specifications to have them locked in.
That's great. Thank you, Sheila.
This next question, I think it was related to LEED. It says, what if it's a park, i.e. only a tiny restroom building?
Yeah, again, if it's tiny restroom, it'll probably be exempt if it's a new construction and under 5,000 square feet, or if it's a renovation, odds are it's going to be exempt.
What is a definition of occupied or conditioned space?
So for our purposes, it's anything that's heated or cooled. If it's, let me use an example that we used that was interesting. It was a food bank, and the food bank had a very large walk-in freezer. So a bit nuanced there, but we exempted the freezer. Folks aren't going to hopefully have a desk or spend a lot of time in this freezer. So the freezer was exempt. The indoor interior that's heated and cooled, that is the square footage that counts.
Is there a process to follow to qualify for the LEED certification exemption? Our project is 2,800 square foot renovation.
Yeah, it's a piece of cake. It's a short form that you and or your architect fill out. You could even do it now, even if you're not ready to go, as long as nothing changes, and we'll turn that around very quickly for you.
How is commitment period defined?
It can be a little complicated. It's a good question. If your project is a phased project, and so say the first phase is A&E, and then the next phase is construction. If you're receiving state funds for both, your commitment period would be 10 years from the date you received your occupancy permit. It wouldn't be 10 years from the date of the last payment of the A&E. So we want to see 10 years, a minimum of 10 years from the date that the last payment was made and that your project is usable.
If we begin a project before the contract is executed, are any of those costs eligible for reimbursement?
Great.
And
Go ahead.
if we are in process of finalizing a long-term lease with our landlord, the city of Seattle, will we be able to complete securitization before this is signed?
Ooh, I'll defer part 2 to Heather. The first part is an excellent question. And because this is such a long process, we'll actually reimburse you for costs incurred going back 3 years from the beginning of this biennium. So this is the 21-23 biennium. So it's what, 2019-18. So we'll go back to July 1 of 2018 to accept those incurred costs and invoices. So a great question. And we know it's a long process, so you're good to go there. And then Heather, could you answer that second part?
Cheryl, can you read that again? I want to make sure I'm following.
If we are in the process of finalizing a long-term lease with our landlord, the city of Seattle, will we be able to complete securitization before this is signed?
No, it needs to be signed ahead. Because essentially, if we're doing a leasehold deed of trust to secure the grant, that lease needs to be executed ahead of time.
Learn something every day. Thanks, Heather.
Okay, this one is a long one. Some projects obligate owner to conduct long-term post-construction monitoring of the project. An example is Army Corps' requirement to monitor performance of wetland mitigation areas for 5 years post-construction. Are the associated costs, engineering, consulting, mitigation area landscaping, replanting, O&M, eligible for reimbursement?
That's a really good question. I used to work for the House, the federal House, and we dealt with the Corps a lot. And so I understand where you're coming from. If it's part of the scope in your legislative intent document, then yes. And if it's close or nuanced, then give us a call. We'll take a look at it. But if it says right in your legislative intent document that that's what it's supposed to pay for, that's what we'll do.
We lease the site we are purchasing with this grant. If we need to make repairs before the grant is funded, but after March 31st, 2022, do all repairs have to be subject to prevailing wage?
Yes, even if you're not under contract, anything you do that's part of the project that you submitted the legislative intent for, then that needs to be paid prevailing wages.
In the process of working on an MOA for securitization with the Washington Department of Fire, I'm not sure, WDFW.
Fish and Wildlife.
Fish and Wildlife. Can we begin project, or do we need to wait for that agreement to be submitted prior to move forward?
Well, again, you can start your project, and a lot of folks are eager to do so because of the rising construction costs. And again, we'll go back to July 1 of 2018 to reimburse you for those costs, as long as, again, they're part of the legislative intent you put into your member request form.
When you use the term project complete, do you mean the portion of the project funded by the grant or the full project completion?
Another really great question. For our purposes, if it's a unique and usable by the public, and the only part that was in your legislative intent was that phase, then that's when we say project is complete for our purposes.
We received a grant to fund a master plan completion. What area will that fall in?
I would say reconstruction. And if your grant covers the entire master plan process, then you're good to go.
Kelly, if that answered the question or not, please, ask more if we didn't get that, if that's what that was intended for.
Yes, and that goes for everybody. If you need to follow up, just put it in the chat there.
I have 2 direct appropriation grants for a single project. Do I need to submit everything twice?
Probably not. We did our darndest to make sure that these types of multiple appropriation projects had just the one grant manager and project manager. So if it's the exact same thing, the answer is probably no.
How do you show site control for a safety screen that will be added to a state overpass?
Oh, a state overpass. I'm not sure who gets site control from DOT. In that case, we might need to do a little digging, and we may need to redirect the funds to transportation. But give us a holler, and we'll have to take a look at the legislative intent and then see what DOT is providing to you. But that might require a change.
Or would DOT need to give approval?
Boy, yeah, but good luck with that.
We were told prevailing wage does not apply when grant is used for land purchase only.
Yep, that's correct. Thank goodness there's no prevailing wage for real estate agents. Oh, wait. Sorry about that, folks.
Did you say that rolling stock is or is not eligible for reimbursement?
It is generally not, but if it's in your legislative intent, then we'll be able to reimburse you for it.
How do we get the exceptions for under 5,000 square feet?
It's a short little form. It sounds like you'll be automatically exempted. You just fill out the form, send it to your project manager.
What if the state funding awarded is a small fraction of the overall project cost? Does the entire project need to be prevailing wage less than 1/12 of it was paid for with state funds?
The short answer, go ahead.
Which would increase our overall budget dramatically.
Yeah, the short answer is yes. As far as LNI has told us, $1 of state money will, what they call, prevail the project. And but my feeling is yes, you could contact LNI though to check that. Sheila, I'm not sure if you have any other information there, but I'm pretty sure that any state money will prevail the project.
Yes.
Thank you. Yeah.
Yep. And if you've got federal money in it too, you're dealing with federal prevailing wage.
Yeah. So I would either call or have your contractor contact Labor and Industries, and we've got all that contact information for you.
How do you approach contract readiness site control when the grant is for land acquisition?
Heather went over that. I'm pretty sure it's, in that case, it would be a purchase and sale agreement, an executed purchase and sale agreement.
If it is county property where our building will be completed, owned for over 100 years, is there a modified securitization process?
If it's owned, you just submit the deed, and then it depends on the dollar amount, but I'm not sure what you're saying by modified. Heather,
Yeah, can you repeat, Cheryl? I'll try and interpret it here.
Sure. If it is county property where our building will be completed, owned for over 100 years, is there a modified securitization process?
Okay, so I might be answering this incorrectly, but what I'm hearing is that the property is located on a county-owned land and it's being leased for 100 years. In this case, it would be a leasehold deed of trust that we would secure. So
Thank you, Heather.
hopefully I answered that correctly.
If not, please let us know in the chat or just follow up later.
At what point can I begin to incur reimbursable expenses, i.e. what forms, approvals need to be in place before I can incur reimbursable expenses?
As long as they're eligible and part of your legislative intent, you can incur as many as you want, going back to July 1 of 2018.
Kelly says we will need more funding, but that helps.
Great.
That was the last of the questions. Oh, wait. There's one more. It's okay. This is a follow-up to the question that we just talked about. No, it is county property and the county is doing this new building using state funds through this grant. No lease involved.
Oh, so it sounds like the money might be going directly to the county. Is the county the grantee? That would be my question. In which case, you just show that the county owns the property.
Okay.
There's something in the Q&A. Someone used the Q&A. I'm not sure if we can see that or not.
A follow-up to that is subcontractor doing the building. So I guess, William, who's the grantee?
I wonder if we could unmute.
Pacific County Fair.
Oh, it's the fairgrounds. Okay, so sounds like the grantee is the fairgrounds. So then there should be some agreement between the fairgrounds and the county about leasing or ownership or that kind of thing. So that's what we need to see, and then we could better answer that question for you.
Why is the feasibility not included?
It is if it's in your legislative intent. Generally, we can't pay for feasibility studies, but if the form that you submitted says we want this to pay for a feasibility study, then we'll pay for it.
Where can we get legislative intent forms?
We've got those after, and you, it's probably you're the ones who filled them out. After the governor signs, we get these forms from the House and the Senate and sometimes the governor, and they send them all to us. We're still waiting for about 10 of them, but for the most part, we have them. Email your project manager and you can send them right to them.
If we use forced labor as a portion of the project, can this cost be reimbursable or just the material?
I'm assuming that's prison labor? Forced labor. We'd have to check the legislative intent. And if it's prison labor, then I would also contact L&I. I've never actually seen that before. City workforce. Oh, yeah, that's fine. It's just it's reimbursable at the rate that they're paid.
Let's see. And then as a follow-up to the fairgrounds is owned by the county, I will follow up with you.
Fantastic.
And that's it.
Sounds good. We're almost there. I guess it stops working at what? What I wanted to show you before you go is this toolkit. And this essentially has FAQs and Q&A. Oh, let's talk to Sheila. She's got a hand up. Sheila.
Just a couple of things. Mike, do you want to, what is the trigger for securitization?
Oh, you mean the dollar amount?
Yeah, the dollar amount and who is triggered.
The dollar amount.
I'm not sure. Go ahead.
The dollar amount, I'm pretty sure, is 250,000, but it can depend on when it was appropriated. And that's when you'd have to securitize. And what was the other part of that, Sheila?
And it's nonprofits and it's triggered.
Yeah, nonprofit.
Grantee is a nonprofit.
Thank you for bringing up this up, Sheila. Yeah, not if you're a nonprofit, it's definitely triggered. And then if you're a local government, it's complicated. Can you follow up on that, Heather?
Sure. So if it falls within the threshold of the 250, essentially we'll be taking a look at every project and analyzing it for whether or not it can be securitized. So I think that's a short answer to the question, but we can definitely talk to people about it if that's a concern.
Okay. And then I guess I wanted to throw out a reminder to everyone, if you start early, check with your project manager. There are requirements that have to be met. For instance, you couldn't go to construction and not complete Executive Order 2102. So
Right.
yeah, I would just, anything you think might be early, check with your project manager.
Thank you, Sheila. That is an excellent point.
Well, and I kind of wanted to do a follow-up as it relates to pre-starting construction before you're funded. So it becomes very, very hard if you do a pre-start on a site, you start construction before you're fully funded. What happens is that triggers the title companies to be concerned about mechanics liens if you're not paying your bills as you're going along. So essentially, if we get to that point with the title companies, you've started construction, they find out, essentially what that would lead up to is you going and getting every single contractor's signature on an indemnity agreement that has been out on the property. So like, let's say you had 15 or 20 contractors out there, that's going to be a difficult thing to get all their signatures signed off on indemnity agreements. So, I don't always encourage that to be done because it does become a hassle. So just wanted to talk about that a little bit.
Thank you. Again, I learned something new every day. So we'll send you a link to this toolkit. And it's essentially everything we talked about today in one place. The site control budget, everything, prevailing wage, lead, tribal consultations. You can download documents that we talked about. There's the reimbursement process. If you haven't got a statewide vendor number, I'd go out and just get that right now, even if you're not ready to go. It used to take about a week, but I think it's taking them a little longer these days. And links about SAW accounts and all that stuff. Everything you need is right here. And there's a link to this in your award materials as well.
We
All
have
right,
a couple of more questions that popped up. Do you want to?
yes, please.
Can we submit A19s more frequently than monthly for reimbursement weekly?
I'm pretty sure it's limited to once a month. Beth, can you help me out on
That's
that?
correct. It is once a month.
There you go. So that's it, once a month.
We own the property. I have a deed. Can I start construction now?
You can, after, listen to what Heather and Sheila said. There are some things we should look at, and you can contact us and we can give you more information. And Sheila, do you still have your hand up, or is that a new hand?
I forgot to take it down. Sorry.
Next question, please, Sharon.
Do you need the title insurance step if you fully own the site already?
Go ahead, Heather.
Yeah, I'll take that. So yeah, when you acquired the property, you got what's called an owner's policy of title insurance. Now, when we go to secure our grants, what we'll be obtaining is a lender's policy of title insurance. So yes, it will be required.
Yeah.
And this isn't really a question, it was a statement. For our ERAP grant, we submit weekly A19s.
All right. And then there's something in the Q&A. Did you catch that, Cheryl, or Beth?
Yeah, he put it over in the chat.
I I just want to make sure everybody gets answered. So I believe that's it. I'll put up the prerequisite thank you slide. And if you have any questions at all, please contact your program manager. If you have securitization questions, we can get you over to Heather and her group. And we're here to help you. Believe it or not, we're from the government and we are here to help. If you have even the tiniest question, please let us know. Other than that, I think we're done. And thanks for coming and have a great day.